Hello. This is making the case that we may be living in a simulation, part one. And the question I ask myself is, how can this ridiculous life not be a simulation? We're a conscious being in a fragile fleshy pod called the body, surrounded by predators, both internal and external. We live on a rock orbiting an atomic explosion in a hostile universe filled with lethal radiation, debris, unimaginable distances, and unfathomable qualities. We have an electrochemical brain organ that is unreliable, set against itself, and prone to the most disastrous decisions, guaranteed to bring shame and misery, not only to the individual's seed of consciousness, but often to humanity as a whole, as its preposterous delusions regarding the nature of life cut a swath through the unfortunate populace. But at least we die, or so it seems. So we cannot prove that we are living in a computer-generated simulation, or that there is a hierarchy of simulated worlds above us, stretching up and up to the original humans. The character in a video game, even if they had free will, cannot look outside the parameters of the video game. However, we can be investigators. We can start with a suspicion or a hunch, look at where we are now, examine clues in our shared experience, and decide if the evidence supports the simulation hypothesis. Humanity right now is clearly chasing towards a goal of artificial intelligence with a potential of real-life video immersion, in which we build a virtual world full of independent, conscious characters with lived experience, but no awareness that they are in a video game. The inescapable logic is, if we can do this, want to do it, and ultimately succeed, then it has surely been done many times before, and we are in a long line of simulants. Each simulant culture constructs another simulated space of conscious beings, who in turn construct their own simulated, independent thinking conscious world, and so on, and so on. As an aside, I'm not here to, put out any kind of conspiracy theories or seek to chase anybody down. I don't like the ideas of hidden aliens controlling the rest of humanity, but if we accept the video game thesis, then there must be operators. These operators could also participate and enjoy the real-life experience of the world they had created from the elevated perspective of knowledge in and immunity from its simulated pitfalls. The entry of the operators, the programmers, the people who develop this simulated world that we inhabit, opens up another interesting speculative lens as to what patterns of activities would give them away within the simulated world. Yes, but that's perhaps for a different time. So I propose to approach the vagaries of our life and experience through the lens of what a global simulation will probably look like based on evidence from our own development of video games. How much does our lived experience resemble and add credence to the idea that we are living in a world programmed and written by the next level up of simulants? What do I mean by lens? I use this as a shorthand for theoretical explanatory framework. In science, there is the idea of parsimony, which theoretical framework explains the features observed most accurately, completely, and simply. A spiritual lens would offer that we are the product of a loving God and explain our experience through our relationship to him or her. A mathematics lens may look at probabilities of life occurring. An animal biological lens would place us in a breeding chain to explain who we are and why the world is like this. The lens employed here is based on the premise that our current video games are not written to entertain through a depiction of peaceful cooperation and cohabitation. Rather, the inhabitants of, turn the page here, video games have to face a constant barrage of unknown uncertainty, pain, physical, emotional, uncomfortable, confrontational, and ultimately an unpleasant death. Does this sound eerily familiar to your life? Well, that's the whole point. Video games that we write right now are written to be in a constant state of destabilization for the individual and for the world they inhabit. So I see no reason if, when we become capable of creating a virtual simulated world full of conscious simulated peons, that this theme of entertaining destabilization would not continue. So that's one basic premise. How much is this life and this world like a video game based on the basic idea that it is continually and entertainingly, maybe not for you and me, but somewhat entertainingly destabilized, internally and externally? The other thing is that video games have to have boundaries so the participants remain engaged and don't wander off aimlessly. Boundaries both external, physical, such as an inhospitable universe, and internal. Notice how your life patterns seem to repeat with or without your participation. So, we're going to try and answer the question, are we in a simulation, from an empirical and phenomenological, evidence of how we perceive ourselves and the world around us? Does it lend support to the idea that we're in a simulation? And I don't know, but I have these vagaries of ideas. So as I was thinking about this, a darker possibility dawned on me that, you look around sometimes and you think, if you think along these lines, you think maybe we're in a penal simulation where we are constrained for some infraction in the real world. We're in some kind of simulated prison. As I've examined the unusual numbers of built-in and destabilizing elements in life, it struck me how some people are locked into patterns of tremendous hurt and have tremendous amount of acausal, unexpectedly bad luck. There are people on this world who do never seem to get a break and almost seem like hunted by bad luck. But anyway, more on that perhaps later. So, dear reader, imagine that everything could be different and much, much better.